Today's lesson is orcas, sovereigns of the sea. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Sam.
And we're going to be talking about animals in our lesson today. And we're going to the oceans and we're going to talk about whales. More specifically, we're going to be talking about killer whales, or they're also known as orcas, and they are sovereigns of the sea.
Yes, and this is actually one of my favorite, and I think a lot of people can say this. This is one of my favorite animals that lives in the ocean because they're just so interesting and they're very beautiful, but also very powerful and kind of destructive and smart and just very interesting animals.
Right, there are many different kinds of whales out there. I think they even have whale watching tours that you can attend if you go down to Hualien or places like that. I'm not really sure if you can see orcas off the coast of Taiwan, but we are going to be talking about orcas. They're those whales that are kind of all black and they got the white spots on the sides of their head. I think you know what we're talking about. So let's find out some more about these particular whales. Let's listen to the first part right now.
Orcas, sovereigns of the sea. Orcas stand out as one of the most fascinating marine creatures of all. They are large, powerful animals that live in every ocean on Earth, from the icy Arctic to the warm tropics. Their highly adaptable nature enables them to survive in a wide range of conditions.
大家好，第一部分介绍形容词 fascinating， 它的意思是极有趣的。非常吸引人的，例如 Debbie finds her new job fascinating. Debbie 觉得她的新工作很有趣，或者 The scientist has some fascinating theories about black holes. 那位科学家有一些关于黑洞的迷人理论。继续看到形容词 adaptable， 表示适应性强的，有适应能力的。例如 It's important to be adaptable when you are living in a foreign country.当你住在外国时，能适应环境是很重要的。或是 Stephen considers himself adaptable to most situations. Stephen 认为自己能适应大部分环境。另外补充这个字的动词 adapt, A-D-A-P-T, adapt, 使适应，使适合。造个例句 Animals have adapted to survive in the environment they live in. 动物为了在生活的环境中存活而适应。另外一句 Richard quickly adapted to his new office environment. Richard 很快就适应了新公司的环境。
Okay, so we are getting into our article today, and it says, Orcas stand out as one of the most fascinating marine creatures of all. And we have this little phrase, stand out. So if something stands out, it stands apart from everything else. It's special in some way. And orcas definitely are because they are very fascinating. Fascinating meaning interesting. There's lots of things that you might want to learn about them. They're cool and interesting, and you want to know more facts about them. And I think a lot of people can say that they are very interested in orcas because, again, they are pretty, but they are very intelligent and have lots of things that are very fascinating about them.
That is true. And, of course, you may remember many years ago there was a series of movies about an orca whale. I think it was called Free Willy or something like that. Maybe you've seen that before. So people think these animals are quite fascinating, and we want to learn more about them. Now, here it says they are large, powerful animals that live in every ocean on Earth, from the icy Arctic to the warm tropics. So, of course, we've got several oceans in the world. You can find these whales in all oceans of the earth and all seas as well, but you're not going to find them in rivers and lakes.
Yes, and so we had this little phrase, the tropics, and that just refers to kind of the warmest area of the earth between those two lines of the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. In between there, close to the equator, that's kind of the warmest area of the earth. So it's interesting that they're able to live in very, very cold waters, but also able to live in warmer waters. And so the next part kind of explains why they're able to do that. It says their highly adaptable nature enables them to survive in a wide range of conditions. So they are very adaptable. If you are adaptable, you are able to adapt, which means able to change to kind of fit the environment or the surrounding around you. So in this case, the idea that they can live in very cold or very hot and be able to adapt to those different conditions.
Right, so they're adaptable, and nature here just refers to their personality, how they behave, etc. And they can survive in a wide range of conditions. And because of that, I guess, according to the title here, they're referred to as sovereigns of the sea. Of course, a sovereign is somebody who rules in a country. You could also say a country could be a sovereign nation. It's not controlled by other people. And here, orcas are sovereigns of the sea, and they have all sorts of characteristics that make them interesting to people. So let's move on now to the second part. We will listen first.
Despite also being known as killer whales, orcas are more closely related to dolphins than whales. While both whales and dolphins are cetaceans, orcas share a similar body shape with other dolphin species and likewise use echolocation to find food and communicate. Orcas are highly social animals that live in family groups called pods. Their intelligence and ability to work together make them excellent hunters.
第二部分看到副词 likewise， 它的意思是同样的、类似的、照样的。例如 Susan loves to read books, and her brother likewise enjoys reading. Susan 喜欢看书，她弟弟同样喜欢阅读。也可以说 The court likewise rejected the argument from the defense lawyer. 法院同样驳回了那名辩护律师的论点。
Okay, and so if we continue on, we see, despite also being known as killer whales, orcas are more closely related to dolphins than whales. So again, we hear this name quite a lot, and what's interesting is that a lot of people hear killer whales and kind of put them in more of the whale category, but they have a lot more similarities to dolphins, even though they are all sort of in the same family.
Right, cetaceans. I remember a couple of occasions going down to do some whale watching down in Hualien, but all we saw were dolphins, and I think they can get away with that because dolphins and whales are part of the same family, cetaceans, which we'll get to in the next sentence here. So it says, while both whales and dolphins are cetaceans, orcas share a similar body shape with other dolphin species and likewise use echolocation to find food and communicate. So these are some ways in which orcas are similar to dolphins, or maybe even more similar to dolphins than they are to whales. Whales and dolphins are both cetaceans, and of course a cetacean, that's a class of animals that include whales and dolphins and porpoises. And of course they're hairless, they don't have legs, and they have a horizontal tail fin, unlike sharks that have the vertical one.
Yes, and so then we had this word likewise, and if you look at it, you might be able to kind of get the meaning of this. It just means in the same way as something else. So in this way, they are like dolphins. So likewise, they use echolocation. And echolocation, again, if you remember from school, I feel like that was always a big kind of topic that we would talk about when we got to animals like whales and dolphins and bats even. They use echolocation, and that means using the sound wave, the echo of the sound wave, to locate things or to communicate. So a lot of times, again, if you hear about this when we're talking about like bats and how well they can kind of see in the dark or kind of find their food in the dark, is they are putting out sound waves, and those are bouncing off things in the night, and then they can find it, just like how in the very dark, deep ocean, you kind of can't see very well, so using echolocation is quite important.
It certainly is, and of course, an echo is a sound that you hear if you call out in the mountains or in a mountain valley, and location just refers to finding something. So yeah, they emit those click sounds or whatever, and then the sound bounces back, and they can figure out where that tasty fish is, and they can go chase it and chomp it down. Now here it says orcas are highly social animals that live in family groups called pods. Okay, so in English we have lots of words for groups of animals. You kind of have to learn them all individually. Like if we have a group of fish, we call it a school of fish. If we have cattle, that is a herd of cattle, or a flock of geese, a flock of sheep, etc. And here we have a pod of whales. It's a family group, kind of like a small group of whales. I guess if there's a whole bunch of them, like 50 or 100, that would be a herd.
Yes, and so then we continue on and we see it says, their intelligence and ability to work together make them excellent hunters. And again, yes, if you've ever seen any documentaries or anything like that on wild killer whales, sometimes you will see them even trying to work together and kind of shift the ice that penguins or seals are on. And it kind of blows your mind how intelligent and how they're able to think what they need to do to hunt these animals. And it's very interesting.
It's interesting, and I think I saw something where they're kind of cruel, actually. They're kind of working together to torture a dolphin or a penguin or something like that. So they are nice animals most of the time, but they can also be kind of mean. So they're just like people. They work together, and of course they're good hunters. They are looking for other animals to eat, by the way. So if you're going to kill animals in order to survive, you can't be really nice. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the third and final part.
The name killer whale might sound scary, but it has an interesting story behind it. Hundreds of years ago, sailors observed orcas hunting large whales. Because of this, they called them whale killers. Over time, the term may have been mistakenly reversed or mistranslated. In any case, although orcas are indeed fierce, they do not attack humans in the wild. However, they are sometimes curious around boats, and members of one pod off the coast of Spain and Portugal are known to bump vessels, which scientists believe is a form of play.
第三部分介绍动词 reverse， 表示使逆转、使反向、使彻底改变。我们可以说 The judge reversed the jury's decision, allowing Neo to walk free. 法官逆转了陪审团的决定，判 Neo 无罪。又或者说 Jenny had to reverse the car to park in the tight spot. Jenny 必须倒车才能停进那个狭小的车位。后面看到 fierce 这个单字，它是形容词，它的意思是凶猛的、激烈的、强烈的。例如 The black dog looks fierce, but he is really very sweet and gentle. 那只黑狗看起来很凶猛，但它其实很可爱又温和。再看一个例子 The big house was guarded by 3 fierce dogs. 那栋大房子由3只凶猛的狗守卫。另外补充这个字的同义词 savage, S-A-V-A-G-E, savage, 指野蛮的、猛烈的、残暴的。造个句子 The boy barely survived the savage attack. 这个男孩勉强在野蛮的袭击中幸存。再造一句 A savage storm hit the city and did a lot of damage. 一场猛烈的风暴袭击了这座城市，造成了很大的破坏。最后看到 vessel 这个单字，它是名词，表示船舰、大船、容器。我们可以说 The fishing vessel returned to port with a full catch. 那艘渔船满载而归地回到了港口。最后一个例子 After 6 months on the vessel, the sailors were eager to return home. 在船上待了6个月后，水手们都渴望回家。
All right, and so let's get into it now. And it says, the name killer whale might sound scary, but it has an interesting story behind it. Hundreds of years ago, sailors observed orcas hunting large whales. Okay, because that's something that I've always wondered. Why are they called killer whales? Is it because they are just such good hunters? But apparently there's a long, interesting story behind this, and it is based on what sailors have observed them doing a long time, and they were actually hunting large whales.
Right, a sailor, of course, is a person who works on a boat, and they saw those orcas hunting large whales. Okay, they were hunting whales that were larger than themselves, so they saw them doing this, and because of this, they called them whale killers. Okay, maybe the sailors did not think that these orcas were actually whales. They just thought they were maybe big dolphins or something like that. So they thought, hey, that black and white fish out there, that whale, that porpoise or whatever, is attacking those big whales. Well, they are killing whales. They are whale killers.
Yes, and then, as language does, it says over time the term may have been mistakenly reversed or mistranslated. And we see that a lot with different words of just which language did it start in, or just over time kind of changing in general. And in this case, it says it may have been mistakenly reversed, and reverse just means to switch or swap the order of something or the decision of something to basically change what it is to the other way. So in this case, it was whale killers, and then we reversed those two words. We changed their order back to killer whales.
Yep, the front goes to the back and the back goes to the front. I could say, for example, we're working hard to reverse the damage to the ozone layer because we've caused so much damage to the layer. We're trying to bring it back to its original condition. We're trying to reverse the damage. And here the term was mistakenly reversed, or it was actually mistranslated. So the sailors were probably people of a different culture who spoke a different language, and they used their language to describe these whales, and then other people heard what they said, but they did not translate it correctly, so it was mistranslated. Hence, we have the term. Now, in any case, no matter how it came about, although orcas are indeed fierce, they do not attack humans in the wild. Now, if you're a fierce animal, well, you attack other animals for food. Okay, I would not describe a pig or a cow as being fierce. They kind of eat plants and things like that. But predators like orcas and hawks or whatever, they are fierce. They attack other animals. They mercilessly kill them and eat them.
Yes, and then we also had this phrase, in the wild. And what this means is, as referred to in this sentence, it just means that we are looking at the orcas out in the ocean in their natural habitat, so not in captivity. In this phrasing in this way, it is the opposite of being in captivity. So if you went to some place like SeaWorld and you saw an orca in a gigantic tank, that would be in captivity, versus if you were out on a boat and you saw an orca swimming around out in the ocean, that would be considered in the wild. So luckily, they don't generally attack humans in the wild.
Right. You're from Washington State, so you probably have seen orcas before in Puget Sound or someplace like that. So have you seen orcas actually attack other animals or attack humans?
No, I haven't seen any attacks. I've seen just swimming, and there's orca tours all around the Puget Sound. You can kind of go and visit. They're very interesting and fun, and a great way to see an orca in their natural habitat versus going to some place like SeaWorld.
Right, so it's great to see these things in the wild. Our other English teacher here, Mike, has gone on whale watching tours in Canada there next to Vancouver Island, and he has seen lots of whales there. And those, of course, are wild whales, or they are in the wild. They're not in captivity, as you described. However, they are sometimes curious around boats, and members of one pod off the coast of Spain and Portugal are known to bump vessels, which scientists believe is a form of play. So, yes, they are sometimes curious around boats. They don't eat people. Maybe they leave a bad taste in their mouth or whatever, so they don't bother eating humans. But they're curious around those boats. What's that thing floating in the water there? Let's go check it out. And there is an example of a pod, or a small group of orcas, off the coast of Spain and Portugal. Again, what did they do?
Well, this is something very interesting. I've actually read about this, an article about this, before we had this even come out. And apparently, there's a group of whales that like to bump into the vessels in this one area of the water, again, off the coast of Spain and Portugal. First of all, a vessel is just a ship or a boat, a larger ship or a boat. You wouldn't necessarily call like a canoe or a kayak a vessel, but more like a bigger boat that would fit more people, or a sailboat or something like that. And apparently there's a group that just started bumping into these boats, and they're not really exactly sure why, but they've also sank maybe like 5 boats, I think it was. And they even have kind of documented that this one pod of orcas kind of told other pods of orcas. So now they have different families that are all kind of in this area. And it's been fairly recent, I think since like 2020, that they randomly kind of started to do this. And it's very interesting because scientists are like, wow, we want to watch and listen and pay attention to this. And people driving their boats are kind of like, please don't sink my boat.
Right, so of course, if you're in Spain or Portugal and you want to go sailing, you might want to be aware of these naughty whales out there who are bumping into ships or bumping into vessels. And scientists believe maybe it's a form of play. They're just kind of playing with sailors' minds. They're thinking, these human beings might think they're being attacked or something if we bump this boat. So I guess that demonstrates that whales have a sense of humor.
Yeah, and also it's important to note that, again, it said that they don't attack humans in the wild. And even though they have sank boats, there have not been any reported actual whale attacks. So it is definitely some kind of play or something, because, again, these are very smart creatures in the ocean that probably just think, hey, I'm bored, what can we do? And this boat looks fun to kind of bump around.
Indeed. So they are fascinating animals, and we'll continue talking about them in our next program. But right now, we're going to hear from Hanny, our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分最后一句提到，虎鲸高度适应环境的能力使它们能在各种条件下生存。文中是用 a wide range of conditions 来表达各种条件。A range of 它是指一系列的什么什么，我们可以用到 a wide range of， a whole range of，A broad range of 或是 a full range of 加上名词来表达种类多元的什么，各式各样的什么。举例来说 The shop sells a broad range of toys. 那间店有卖各式各样的玩具。那这边也顺便补充其他可以表达各式各样的说法。一个是 a variety of 加名词，它是表达各种的什么，各式各样的什么。Variety 前方也可以加入形容词，像 wide、large、great 等等。举例来说 There are a wide variety of food options on the menu. 菜单上有各式各样的食物可以选。那另外一个用法是 all kinds of 或者是 all sorts of 或是 all types of 还有 all manner of都可以表达各式各样的什么，只是特别注意其中 manner 在这个用法它是固定用单数，所以像我们说 all manner of musical instruments 就是表达各式各样的乐器。课文第三部分有一句提到，不管怎样，尽管虎鲸确实很凶猛，它们在野外并不会攻击人类。文中用到 in any case， 字面意思是在任何情况下，那它是指无论如何不管怎样，表示无论前面所描述的情况为何，都不影响后面的结论。例如 I'm not sure how long the meeting will take. In any case, I'll call you once it's over. 我不确定会议会开多久，不管怎样，会议一结束我就会打给你的。那顺便补充两个跟 case 有关的用法。第一个补充的是 in that case， 这表示在那种情况下，既然如此，或是假如是那样的话，那通常会摆在句首，意思就跟 if that's the case 或者是 that being the case 差不多。现在假设呢，你想喝咖啡，可是咖啡没了，只剩下茶可以喝，那这时候也许可以说 in that case, I'll have tea then。既然如此，那我就喝茶吧。好，那第二个介绍的是 in somebody's case 或者是 in something's case， 也可以用 in the case of 再加名词，这是表达以什么的例子或情况来说。case 在这里它有情况案例的意思，例如 berries are good for your health. In the case of blueberries, they can help lower blood pressure. 莓果对健康有益， 以蓝莓为例，它可以帮助降低血压。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾这些单字吧。
Sovereign. The sovereign ruled the country with great wisdom and kindness. Fascinating. Today in class, the teacher led a fascinating discussion about space travel. Adaptable. Being a successful employee usually requires one to be adaptable to new roles. Likewise. Sheena missed the meeting this morning, and I likewise forgot about it. Reverse. The instructions were unclear because the order of two of the steps had mistakenly been reversed. Fierce. During our visit to the zoo on Saturday, we saw a fierce lion moving with strength and grace, leaving a strong impression on everyone watching. Vessel. A large vessel that had sailed across the sea entered the harbor early last night.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Sam.
See you next time.